Well, hi, Patreon members. Let's do a little bit of weather in 10. I'm going to go through the short term as quickly as I can so that we can get into the next weather system for the weekend. But really busy here out in the western part of the United States. We've got two major storms. The first one is responsible for this area of winter storm warnings, and we've got blizzard warnings still going on in eastern Colorado. I know Ruthless Goat has been just enjoying, I guess, the crazy snowfalls of 20 to 30 inches that have fallen in parts of the northeastern quarter of Colorado. The second storm is the one that's coming in to Oregon and Northern California. That's responsible for all these winter storm warnings. In the meantime, we're in good shape here up and down the East Coast. You see wind advisories up over a large area from Texas shooting right up to the Great Lakes, and that's going to be the issue in the east here for Thursday. So quiet weather continues. We've got a weak weather a frontal boundary up to the north. It doesn't really have much with it. And of course, you're seeing the storm that is beginning to wrap up here with respect to the depth. We've got a 992 low in right on the Oklahoma Panhandle, and that's going to be shooting up toward the Great Lakes. And this is where we have cold air. It's not especially cold air, but it's certainly cold enough that is supporting snow that when it gets up into that range. Now, the other thing that's going on today is that we've got an enhanced risk of severe weather, which you don't really see very often at the end of November. But here we are in southeast Missouri, northeastern Arkansas, and touching western Tennessee and northwest Mississippi. Nothing, of course, on either side. That slight risk pushing all the way up through western Illinois and down into northern Louisiana. Not going to see much in the way of severe weather risk, though, for tomorrow. And there is the tornado risk actually is pretty high. It's a 5% tornado risk in that very large geographic area that we looked at with respect to the slight risk. They got a 5% risk of a tornado in that whole area. So that's pretty wicked stuff. Now, as far as precip is concerned, I've got the 3-day and the 7-day precip here. And we're not going to get very much from this front tomorrow other than maybe a passing shower or two in much of the east. You see more precip up in northern New England, which makes sense. And some of that's going to be snow and also back through the Great Lakes. And of course, you got all this moisture down in the southwest with the Oregon-California storm that is moving southward. The 7-day is interesting enough for us because the light blue is 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches of liquid, and the WPC folks actually have Long Island, southern New England, back to just touching the New Jersey coast on that edge of 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches. That's a lot of liquid to play with here. So if we can resolve the issue with regards to rain and or snow, because it may be both, and some sleet and a little freezing rain thrown in as well in some areas, and that's going to be the real tough thing to figure out here. Now, a number of you have been asking me questions regarding the block. Just exactly how does it work? And I think this upper air really shows it well. This view that you see. I kind of lost my camera here, but no matter, it'll show up. Nope, that's not it. No matter. Okay, so take a look at this and watch how the upper air changes here in the eastern part of the U.S. We have, of course, we're here to Wednesday. Now you've got your upper low. This is your storm system that's going to become the block. That's the one for Wednesday into Thursday. You see how it intensifies when it goes south of Nova Scotia, and now it's south of Newfoundland and really strengthens. At this point, on the left, you see the energy from the system that's coming into California and Oregon now getting shot out to the east. And here's where you would normally wind up seeing this weather system coming up and trying to move toward the northeast, or maybe it goes more this way. But the bottom line is that it does pass by to our north in a normal flow. But what you have here is, you've got this big upper low. Okay, everybody can see that. You've got this big upper air storm right there touching the eastern shores of Newfoundland. It's roughly at 50 north, 50 west. Up to the north of this upper low is actually an upper high. Okay, and there's also, you can't see it on the screen here, but because it's over the top, but there's this big ridge that builds up over Greenland is preventing the low in Newfoundland from moving. And then the upper high has pretty much closed off any kind of northeast motion. So, your upper flow is like this, coming down from eastern Canada, down from Hudson Bay, and then continuing down through New York State and New Jersey and down into Maryland, and then moving out to the southeast around the big low that's out offshore. So while the Newfoundland low is out there, we are going to see colder air come in. It's not Arctic cold, it's Canadian cold. So it's kind of borderline, but it is ample enough. And of course, now as we move forward, you're going to watch what happens to the low to the west. It gets shoved underneath and it moves to the south. And when you have the lows moving to the south, this is where you trap cold air in the northeast down into the northern mid-Atlantic states, especially as you get deeper in the winter. I don't know how far south we're going to see this marginal cold air get. You also have this wrapped up upper air system. So that itself is going to create some cold air, which you can translate that down to the lower levels of the atmosphere through a process of dynamic cooling. The actual lift of the moisture and then the falling precipitation actually helps to cool the atmosphere down. And that's why this would be a situation where it would be rain changing to snow. Each run of the model seems to be taking this low further south, and that is something you have to pay attention to as well, because if this gets squashed further south, you could wind up in a situation where the northern fringe of precip is only going to get so far. I don't think we're going to have that issue here. The GFS may be overdoing it a little bit on this one because it took the upper low down into Virginia and off the Virginia coast. That's a pretty... that is at least the model saying that the block to the north is formidable and it's going to be strong enough to do that. If it's maybe a little bit weaker, you're going to pull that upper low a little bit further north. The surface low is going to be pinned up closer to us anyway. So it really is going to be a difficult puzzle to sort of work out, okay, how much precip is going to be, how much cold air you're going to wind up having. And now, by the way, this is Monday. I'm just rolling it backwards here. I'll just start again here. So this is Sunday morning at 7 a.m. And by Monday morning, the upper low is sitting off the Virginia coast. So if we get precip to come in here, some lead stuff that tries to get in here on Saturday night, it'll be an event that lasts for a while, a long duration event. But the big question is, then the big question becomes, okay, well, how much precip are we actually dealing with? What are the radars going to look like? Is it going to be all this going on aloft and you don't wind, meanwhile down at the surface, it's less impressive. The European today, only being able to see this every 24 hours, but you see how it handles the upper low. It actually drops it down into West Virginia and Western Virginia and then turns it up to the northeast. So the European actually has a well-defined surface low and more precip further north, but there's again that question, where's the cold, how much cold air are we going to have to deal with here? And then ultimately, this is Tuesday morning, the upper low is still sitting right around southern New England and just off the coast of Long Island. I would think by this point, the precip is long done. But this is going to be very interesting to see how it all plays out. And I think, again, even we're at Tuesday here, so we have a lot more to look at, a lot more time to look at this and watch it play out. So here's how the GFS handled it today. It was actually pretty robust with the precip amounts. We'll use the radar. And here it is for Saturday evening. It actually has some snow breaking out in southern New Jersey, southern and south central PA, down into Delaware and northern Maryland. And you can see also an area of sleet and freezing rain in southwest PA. Your cold air is actually draining southward. If you look out to the east, you've got the western edge of the blocking low that's well out to the east. The last isobars are still kind of sitting right along the coast of eastern New England. There's a high up here, so there's cold air at least the low levels of the atmosphere that's trying to bleed southward. Your actual surface low is still back here in Iowa. And again, it's blocked. It can't go this way, so it's got to throw the energy probably down here, where we're going to wind up with a secondary low that's going to develop. And then you're going to have all that upper air energy to contend with as it moves eastward. So this is for Saturday night into Sunday morning. It actually has I'm kind of surprised that it has as much of front-end precip as it has. And as we wait for the redevelopment, we might even see it go over to rain for a short time before the coastal low takes over. And you see it here, east of the Delaware coast, Sunday evening at 7 o'clock. Not a whole lot of snow showing up there at that point. You get this sort of front-end round of precip Saturday night into Sunday morning. Then, you piddle around for the rest of the day, or maybe it's mostly rain. And then you wait for the coastal low to explode and intensify. And with the upper low swinging eastward, you can see that the coastal low between 7 a.m. Sunday night, 7 p.m. Sunday night and 1 a.m. on Monday barely moves. And into 7 a.m. Monday morning, it's barely moved. It just rotates. That's because it's right underneath the upper low. And you see the darker blues that are showing up the way the GFS depicts it on the radar. It's got heavy, what looks like some heavy snows right along the immediate coast. And then it starts to slowly pull the low out straight to the east. It's an interesting idea that if that winds up verifying, it makes the forecast so exceedingly difficult. The European at Sunday, your primary low is still way back in southern Wisconsin. By Monday morning, it's got the low, a 988 low, sitting southeast of Cape Cod. So it's a little bit further to the north, but it's not, I just want you to be sure here when you look at this. I know it sort of looks like the low in Wisconsin suddenly is moving straight east and winds up in Cape Cod this way. That's not what's happening. What's going to happen is like what the GFS has. You got this long front out here. It's reached its peak intensity. The surface low can't move because this high is blocking it. So you're going to get some kind of redevelopment here, some sort of low, a secondary low, and then that winds up intensifying, and that's what goes to Cape Cod. Otherwise, we'd be talking a rain event if we were talking about a low moving straight east like that. Where did I do with it? Oh, here it is. So this is what the European comes up with when it comes to, this is courtesy of Pivotal Weather, by the way. And this is what the European comes up with snowfall. Again, with that slightly further north track, it's producing a few inches along the coastal areas. Not that much, though. Once you go south of 195, down into Delaware and southeastern PA, we're talking fractional amounts. And you see the bigger amounts in northwest New Jersey and then north of Route 84. But remember, if we wind up with a coastal low like the GFS has, which is tucked in more underneath the upper low, you're probably going to wind up pulling these areas further south. And of course, the numbers are fairly robust in upstate New York and into New England. This is cumulative, by the way. So this is all from the second system. There's not going to be much of anything with the first. There might be some lake effect that goes on way up in upstate New York. Probably better to use the 24-hour accumulated snow amounts. That might work a bit better on this. All right, so let's go from 168 would be 12Z Tuesday. So by then it's all over with. So let's back up to 144. So this is this is 7 a.m. Monday. So this is from 7 a.m. Sunday to 7 a.m. Monday. That's when this is all going to be produced by the storm system. So I've taken out whatever kind of lake effect that goes on with the system for Wednesday into Thursday. So you can see how it's handling it with the 1 to 2, 3 inch amounts in northern New Jersey, 1 inch to maybe an inch or two on Long Island, a little less to the east. But I would really, these snow maps are so deceptive. I'm just kind of putting it on for illustrative purposes only, because I certainly wouldn't forecast amounts at this point where we are at Tuesday. The GFS, for comparison's sake, showing it actually has. You have to use this a bit differently, because the GFS has snow here Saturday night and Sunday morning, and in the European probably has much less, if anything at all. It's more for later Sunday night into Monday when you get the redevelopment. But you see how the GFS with its 24-hour snowfall really goes gangbusters here on Monday with the coastal low. Here's an even closer view. And these are 24-hour snowfalls. So if we look at from Sunday morning to Monday morning, it's got this. And then from Monday morning to Tuesday morning, you add a little bit more. So this, to me, on the GFS, looks like it puts so much more emphasis with respect to the low, how it develops the low off the coast, and with the upper low coming in. It's a very dynamic look to things. I want to also show you the dilemma with respect to the upper air, with trying to figure out how cold is the atmosphere going to be. And we'll use this is probably the best one to use. So I like to, the 0 degrees Celsius line is a good rain snow line. And if you believe the GFS is precip here, by Saturday evening, that 0 line is way down into Chesapeake Bay. So this is why it's got that front end snow. That pushes up northward, because ahead of it you get warmer air aloft that tries to push up northward ahead of the low. The 0 gets to about New York City Sunday afternoon, and just north of New York City by Sunday evening, it's still below freezing at the 5,000 foot level over Long Island, the Hudson Valley, and over Connecticut. Now, after that, the coastal low is beginning to develop. So what happens is that very cold air at that 5,000 foot level will collapse, and collapse very rapidly. So by 1 a.m., it's well below 0 at the 5,000 foot level, all the way down into Delaware and into Chesapeake Bay. And then by Monday morning, it's really cold aloft. So if you've got a 978 low east of the Delaware, 76 or whatever that is, if that surface low is there, and you're this cold at that level of the atmosphere, where you see that darker shading of blue, is probably a good place to look for some heavier snowfalls to be falling. So, this is kind of a very broad analysis of what's happening here. It's, as I said before, it's just way too early to speculate on anything with regarding amounts because of the complex nature of all of this. So let me give you a plan on how I'm going to approach this. I know, because we got the holiday, we got Thanksgiving coming, and it's a holiday weekend, a 4-day weekend, and you might have some, plans to figure out. So later tomorrow afternoon, after all the models are in, I'm going to do a very rough early call. Normally in a situation like this, I would wait till Thursday to do it, but because of Thanksgiving, I'll do an early call for tomorrow for all of this. And rest assured that we've got no problems through the daytime Saturday to worry about. So that's a plus. Okay. So if you've got any questions, by all means message me, and I'll get back to you ASAP. And don't worry about things for now, because there's still going to be a lot of moving around of chess pieces here. I think with regards to trying to take a low out to the north, that's not going to happen. So what I'm referring to is how this all redevelops along the coast, and how the upper low interacts with that. And that's going to be a short-term issue, and we're not going to get to that till at the earliest the end of the week. So it's like getting 2 weather in 10s, because it's coming up on weather in 20. All right. But it's, we've got a storm situation, and going to, usually wind up spending more time with that sort of thing. Okay, so we'll talk to you later. I've got my regular live stream tonight at 7 o'clock. I'll have some posts coming up in just a little bit.